All right, let's dive in. Today, we're gonna explore La Llorona.
The Weeping Woman.
Yeah, exactly, the Weeping Woman.
Spooky stuff.
Super spooky. We've got some seriously creepy accounts from that Echoes of the Dead podcast.
Oh, I know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So we're gonna go deep, not just into like where this whole legend comes from, but
real encounters.
yeah, like people who say they've actually seen La Llorona.
Which honestly is what always gets me.
Right. Like, is it just a story
Or
or
is there something more to it?
okay, so
Where do we even begin?
well, I guess first, like, what even is the story? What makes it so, I don't know, like, captivating?
Right. Okay, so the legend goes there was this woman, Maria, beautiful, stunningly beautiful.
Okay.
She falls in love, gets married, the whole fairy tale.
Or rich guy, right?
Oh yeah, wealthy, charming.
But then,
It all goes sour.
classic.
He leaves her, abandons her and their 2 kids.
Heartbreak, betrayal.
Jealousy the whole 9 yards.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
It is, and this is where it gets dark.
Yeah, this isn't just a sad love story.
No, driven by, well, everything. Grief, rage. Maria does the unthinkable.
This is the part I always find hard to hear.
She takes her kids to the river,
Mm.
drowns them,
It's just awful.
and immediately she's hit with the horror of what she's done, the guilt, despair, and she ends up taking her own life in the same river.
It's almost Shakespearean, the tragedy of it all.
It is. And that's when the supernatural kicks in.
Because she can't find peace, right?
Exactly. Because of her actions, she's denied entry into the afterlife.
So she...
She's trapped forever searching for her children, crying out their names.
La Llorona, the Weeping Woman.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting, because people claim to have actually seen and heard her.
Not just like campfire stories, but
Real encounters, vivid, terrifying.
and some of these people, they didn't even know the legend beforehand.
I know, right? Like, that always blows my mind. If you don't know the story, you're not going to imagine it.
Makes you think.
It does. Okay, so there's this one story, 1982, family camping near the Santa Fe River.
Mexico, right?
Yep. Middle of the night, they start hearing these cries.
Oh, I bet they were freaked out.
They thought someone was hurt, right? Grab flashlights, search the whole area.
No.
Nothing.
Like nothing at all.
Nothing. Cries coming from thin air.
Maybe an animal, you know. Sometimes they sound...
Well, here's the thing. The next morning, their 6-year-old daughter, she tells her parents she saw a woman
by the river.
by the river, white dress, just sobbing uncontrollably. And she asks the little girl, "Where are my children?"
Chills, literal chills.
And then poof, gone.
Okay, that's just straight out of a horror movie.
I know. But that image, that grieving mother, it just sticks with you.
It's
And scary because it's not just this one time.
there are other stories.
Oh, tons. Like this police officer in El Paso in 1996, he was responding to a call, a woman screaming near a canal.
I can only imagine.
So he gets there, sees a figure, white dress, walking by the water. And he calls out, but when she turns, it's like a skeletal face and then this wail, just bone-chilling.
Did he say anything about it? Like how he felt?
He said it was the most terrifying experience of his life, and he'd heard the stories. The area was known for La Llorona sightings.
Like a hot spot.
Right. So it's not just like glimpses, right?
She interacts.
Oh, yeah, big time. 2010, family in San Antonio, they experienced, I don't even know what to call it, like a haunting.
Oh, God. I don't like where he's going.
Starts with their son. He sees a crying woman in their backyard.
That's never a good sign.
Nope. Then doors slamming, faucets turning on, you name it.
And the crying?
Oh, yeah. The signature wailing everywhere and nowhere at once.
Like she attached herself to them.
And get this, they tried everything. Even had a priest bless their house.
Nothing worked.
Nope.
So it's not just like a quick scare. This is
Full-on haunting.
what makes her target certain people, places.
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Maybe we'll find out.
Maybe. But, you know, this whole thing, it's not just real-life encounters.
Hollywood's gotten in on the action.
Oh, yeah, they love a good ghost story.
What's their take on La Llorona?
Let's just say they've added their own spin to it.
I'm all ears.
Let's dive into Hollywood's version next. Back again, ready for more La Llorona.
You bet. It's crazy how a story from, what, centuries ago can still give us chills today.
Right. Like, out of all the ghost stories, why does this one stick around?
That's what I want to know. Is there something, I don't know, deeper going on here?
I think so. There's this whole psychological angle, you know? La Llorona taps into some pretty basic anxieties, things we maybe don't even realize we're scared of.
More than just the spooky story then. Like, what kind of anxiety?
Think about parents, right? The worst possible thing, losing a child.
I mean, yeah, that's gotta be terrifying.
In La Llorona, she embodies that fear, the ultimate loss, a parent's worst nightmare.
Because it was her actions that led to it.
Exactly. A
Mhm.
cautionary figure showing how fragile life is, what happens when grief, rage take over.
But it's not just parents, right?
No, I think there's something about La Llorona that speaks to everyone, a feeling of guilt, regret, you know,
Oh, like choices we wish we could take back.
exactly. That yearning to fix things, to undo the past. La Llorona's search for her kids, it's like a metaphor for that.
Stuck in that cycle of remorse, no peace, no forgiveness.
And a lot of people can relate to that feeling.
Big time. But there's also the cultural side, right? La Llorona's huge in Latin American folklore.
Passed down for generations.
I've heard she's used to, like, keep kids in line, don't wander off, stay away from the water at night.
Like a boogeyman, but with this whole tragic backstory.
Yeah, it's heavier.
Those stories we grow up with, they shape how we see the world.
Even if we don't realize it.
Right. And even for people who haven't grown up with La Llorona, the themes are universal: loss, guilt, consequences. We see those everywhere.
It's like those myths, archetypes, the vengeful spirit, the price of wrongdoing. They pop up across cultures.
Exactly. But here's what gets me about La Llorona. She keeps evolving, changing with our fears.
It's not just the same old story.
Nope. Look at how Hollywood portrays her, for example.
You mean like that movie, The Curse of La Llorona?
That's the one. They took the basic legend, but made her way more malevolent.
Like she's not just sad, she's actively trying to hurt kids.
Right. Amped up the fear factor, modernized it,
It's like they tapped into those modern fears, child abduction, danger lurking in the suburbs.
Exactly. Our fears change, so the legend changes with them.
La Llorona becomes this like blank slate for each generation to project their anxieties onto.
And it's not just Hollywood. People still report seeing her, hearing her today.
Like that sighting by the Salt River last year.
That's what I'm saying. It blurs the lines between, like, reality and folklore.
Makes you wonder if there's something more to it.
The power of belief.
If enough people believe it, does it become real? Even without proof.
Maybe. That's like, you go looking for La Llorona, you might just find her, whether
Yeah.
she's actually there or not.
We want to believe. There's got to be more out there than what we can explain.
It's the mystery that draws us in.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Origins, real-life encounters, Hollywood, even the psychology of it all.
It's a lot to unpack.
But are we missing something? Is there another angle to explore?
I think so. It's not just about why we like this story, it's what it tells us about U.S., about how we deal with the supernatural.
So even now, with all our technology, we still crave explanations for things that go bump in the night.
We want to make sense of the unexplainable. La Llorona gives us a framework, a way to categorize those things that just don't fit in our logical world.
Like she puts a name and a face to the unknown, to the things that scare us.
And that can be comforting and terrifying all at once.
Comforting because it feels like we have some control. Terrifying because, well, maybe we don't.
Exactly. That's why La Llorona is so powerful. She forces us to confront those ideas, that there are things we just don't understand.
And that can be a pretty scary thought.
Especially when it's tied to our biggest fears. Losing someone we love, making choices we can't undo.
Okay, so why should we, as listeners, care about La Llorona? Is this more than just a campfire tale?
Way more. She makes us think about our own fears, our anxieties, reminds us that life is fragile, our choices matter, and grief, guilt, those are powerful forces.
Like a mirror showing us our darkest fears.
You got it. And by looking into that mirror, by exploring these ideas, we learn about ourselves, about our place in the world.
Not just listening to a spooky story, but actively engaging with it, challenging our beliefs.
That's what sets La Llorona apart. She's not just a ghost story. She's a window into the human mind.
Wow, that's a great way to put it. We've covered a lot of ground here, the history, the psychology, the cultural impact.
It's amazing how much one story can hold.
But we're not done yet. We'll be back in part 3 to wrap things up and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder. We're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into La Llorona.
A weeping woman, still haunting us.
Right. So after all this, the stories, the sightings, what do we take away from it all? What does La Llorona teach us?
Not just about ghosts, but about ourselves.
I'm all ears.
Our stories, our myths, they're not just for fun. They show us what scares us, what keeps us up at night.
Like even now, we like to think we've got it all figured out, But there's still so much we don't know.
And La Llorona, she reminds us of that there are still mysteries out there.
And that can be exciting, right? But also kind of scary.
Definitely both. It makes you realize there are things we might never understand, forces beyond our control.
It's like she represents the power of the unknown, you know?
Yeah.
There's more to life than what we can see and explain.
And I think that's why she's stuck with us for so long. Across cultures, generations, we're drawn to the darkness, to facing what scares us.
And maybe by facing those fears, we learn to deal with them, to live with the unknown without letting it take over.
Maybe we even find something beautiful in that darkness, in the things we don't get.
I like that. La Llorona is not just a warning. It's about accepting that life is messy, good and bad, light and dark.
We don't have all the answers, and that's okay.
Being comfortable with the mystery, with what we don't know.
Exactly. That's the key.
So, as we wrap up, one last thought for our listeners. If you heard those cries in the night, what would you do? Run.
Or would you go towards the mystery?
Would you try to help La Llorona? Or would you just want to understand her pain?
It's a tough question. No easy answers.
Just like the legend itself. But sometimes, the best questions are the ones that make us think harder.
A good story, a good legend, it stays with you, makes you question, explore.
So keep listening to those whispers in the